Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview Arkansas's trip to Jerry's World to play Texas A&M in a neutral site game in Arlington, Texas. You can catch that 2:30 Central on ESPN. Odds makers have A&M as about a 4-point favorite with an over-under of 52.5 as we do this Monday morning. That makes for an implied final score of A&M 28, Arkansas 24. My model, which is composed of several reputable computers, also has A&M favored by 4. Chase, interesting matchup. A&M scored kind of a vanilla win over a Bowling Green team I think that's better than people know. Max had some decent teams this year, as some people have found out the hard way. Should have won by more than that probably, but did get the win. And Arkansas got a strange win in Auburn. That might have been as much due to Auburn as was Arkansas. But as you know, I've liked the Hogs all year. I think this is a very interesting matchup and should be a close one out there in Texas.
Yeah, and I will break down these two teams, but to me, the biggest thing, you got Texas A&M coming in with the number 8 rushing offense in the country, Arkansas with the number 16 rushing offense in the country. They both are top 25 nationally when it comes to time of possession, and that's something that Arkansas really dominated against Auburn, which is ultimately why I think they won the way they won. They had the ball so much. So I feel like whichever team can establish the run the best is going to come out with a win. This is a very intriguing game. Both teams, I feel like it's been somewhat of a roller coaster, and we're still trying to figure these teams out. And I think this week can give us another gauge. But there's questions on both sides of the ball for sure.
Yeah, spoiler alert, if it comes down to the rushing attack, there's a pretty revealing stat that we'll get to at the end of this. But first of all, let's talk about when Arkansas has the ball against A&M's defense. Give you the stats. Arkansas averaging 40.5 points a game, an average of 78 snaps per game, turnover rate 1.9%. The Hogs run it 53% of the time, 6.2 yards per average on rushing plays. That takes sacks out of it. And 7.4 yards per passing play that adds sacks into it, an average of 6.8 yards per play. The stats for A&M's defense, they're on the field for 59 plays a game, giving up 18.3 points a game. Turnover rate, 2.5%. Teams throw it 51% of the time. Against the Aggies, 5.9 yards per pass play, 4.9 yards per rushing play for a total of 5.4 yards. You know, from the Arkansas perspective, I just feel like I love that offense when it is clicking. Taylen Green just has been a weapon. You saw maybe the play of the week in the SEC. Might have been the play of the week in college football if it weren't for the BYU kickoff return and the Hail Mary out in Boulder. But, yeah, I mean, but the problem with Taylen Green, Chase, is he's been under 50% completions his last 2 games.
Yep.
You know, they got Jaquindon Jackson. I like him a whole lot. I think he is about as underrated a player as there is in the league. And A&M's defense on the other side, we kept thinking we were getting this sack machine, and they've just not done that so far. 5 sacks so far. I don't really know what to make of A&M's defense, and I feel like depending on the week, I don't know what to make of Arkansas's offense.
Right, and Jaquindon Jackson is terrific. He has 472 yards on 69 carries and 8 touchdowns this season. He's fun to watch. And you mentioned Taylen Green. I mean, he's 957 yards passing. He's got 4 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions as well. So he turned the ball over twice against Auburn on Saturday. They couldn't convert that into points, but there's going to be a lot of teams that if he turns the ball over, they're going to turn it into points, and that's going to put Arkansas into a hole. And so I think he needs to be more consistent. You know, we know he fits well with what Bobby Petrino likes to do offensively. But Hank, can he be consistent? Can he clean some of this up? But I think Jaquindon Jackson is such a huge asset to this Arkansas offense. And we mentioned they're 16th nationally in rushing. He's, you know, in his numbers are great in college football as a whole, but certainly he's one of the best backs in the SEC. And so, you know, for Arkansas, if they could establish the the run game. If they can get Taylen Green able to move as well, also Jaquindon Jackson, if they're able to run the ball like that and run time off the clock, I think that's definitely a bonus for Arkansas.
Yeah, one of the stats that stands out here is the plays. Arkansas being on the field for, what was it, 78, 79 plays a game? It was 78. And A&M's defense only on the field 59 snaps a game. That's a pretty good mark. So I think just holding on to the ball here is going to be a key. So let's talk about the other side of the matchup. A&M's offense. We've seen some good things. We've seen Marcel Reed at quarterback the last 2 weeks. Do we know if he's the guy coming into this one as we do it on Monday morning?
There's still there's no direction on where they're going as far as quarterback goes for this week. Connor Weigman has the shoulder injury. He was out again against Bowling Green. He did not even dress out this past weekend. He was on the sideline and dressed out against Florida, was not dressed out against Bowling Green. Marcel Reed has had his struggles with accuracy. It's really unclear what they're going to do, and the injury report will come out midweek this week. I would imagine that Weigman would still be questionable on the lists, not to give them an idea of who's going to be the starter. But, yeah, it's still up in the air, and, it's one of those things. I'm not really sure at this point what's best for them to do at quarterback. Obviously, a shoulder injury is significant for a quarterback, but then Marcel Reed, like I mentioned, has had some accuracy issues. So I'm not sure what direction they will go or they should go, really, at this point.
Before we get into some numbers on that side of the ball, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the game. Think you know your stuff. Get in on our $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head along over to our online casino. Get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. A&M's offense averaging 31 points on 69 snaps a game. Excellent at taking care of the ball. 1.1% turnover rate. The Aggies run it 62% of the time. 6.1 yards per rushing play. That's the same average for passing play. And the Arkansas defense is giving up 20 points on the nose, 62 snaps, 2.8% turnover rate. Teams will throw it 58% of the time. They average 3.7 yards per rushing play against the Arkansas defense, 6.3 per pass play. Again, we got questions at quarterback, but I'll tell you what, their running attack's been pretty good. Le'Veon Moss has had some nice games, and I think we'll see a lot of him on Saturday.
Yeah, we knew Moss and Daniels were going to be the guys, especially when Ruben Owens went down, and Owens wasn't the best, wasn't the number one back, but he was going to provide some, some speed. He was going to be able to relieve those guys, but Moss has had a terrific start, 354 yards on 63 carries, 3 touchdowns. Amari Daniels, 197 yards and a couple of touchdowns. But I think what's also helped with Marcel Reed being in the game, he also is a good runner, 32 carries, 217 yards and a touchdown. He averages like 6.8 yards per carry. And so having a quarterback that has the mobility as Marcel Reed does, I think has definitely benefited their run game. But I really like the backs for Texas A&M. Moss is terrific, like I said, and again, they've stepped up when they lost Ruben Owens, who again was going to be a guy who was going to come. He was going to get a lot of touches this year. I think there's no doubt about that. So I think they did a good job of making up for the loss there with Ruben Owens, and having Reed come in and run, I think has been a big bonus as well.
Let's get into picks. Tell me who you got and why.
I thought long and hard about this one. I'm going to go Arkansas. I think they build off what they did in Auburn. And yes, it was a strange game. Auburn turned it over a bunch, but still, I think the roller coaster that has been for Arkansas, I think they do get it figured out, and they looked so good against Oklahoma State, and then lackluster against UAB. They do go get a win at Auburn. I think they build off that. And I think we're going to start seeing more of what we saw against Oklahoma State in the first half for Arkansas. I think if they find their footing and figure some things out, I'm going to take Arkansas this one. I think it'll be a close game, though.
Yeah, I still feel like there's a little bit of mystery as to what Texas A&M is, not just the quarterback position, but are they going to generate the pass rush that we've talked about so much in the offseason? But I think there's two things for me that kind of flip my opinion on this game. I think one is Taylen Green. Now, there's two sides of Taylen Green. The one, again, is where he's not been as accurate the last 2 weeks. But I remember that performance against Oklahoma State. I mean, I know there were turnovers, and that is a problem too. But I just feel like the upside with him, Chase, is so high. That's number one. I like their upside offensively more than I like any of his. Number two, run defense. A&M giving up nearly 5 yards per rushing play. Now, A&M's played one of the tougher schedules in the league, so let's not set that aside. But Arkansas has faced Jarquez Hunter and Ollie Green, two of the better running backs in the country. And that rush defense statistically has still been pretty good. Now, some of that was probably padded by that Pine-Bluff game, but I just feel like when I'm looking for reasons to bank on for a team to jump up and win a game, I feel like Arkansas gives me a little bit more, even though I'm guessing A&M is going to have the fan advantage being in Arlington.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. And this is the last time that they'll play in Arlington at Jerry's World. It's actually going to go back to campuses next year, which I think will be cool for this rivalry.
Yeah, I do too. Not a big fan of neutral site games. I guess you got the world's largest cocktail party, but that's an exception. And even I think I'd even rather see those ones played in their respective ballparks. Anyway, thank you for watching us here. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. Thanks for watching Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.